Quack, quack. Oregon's got a pretty big recruiting weekend coming up with Phil Knight trying to come in and close the deal. Listen, as Oregon is in the running for quite a few 5 stars and also potentially trying to keep their quarterback of the future. Now, before we get into it, please go ahead, hit that like and the subscribe button. Let me know what you guys are thinking down in the comments below. As Oregon currently is not in the 247 composite top 10, where do you think they land, and do you think they can potentially sneak in? So, Oregon's preparing for a pretty big recruiting weekend, especially as Phil Knight is going to be there trying to close the deal on some recruits. David Hicks, the past weekend, has decided to make a surprise visit for the Ducks. And this is the second time that he's been out there recently. And you've got to believe that there is some real belief that the Ducks might have a shot here. And ultimately, I believe that David Hicks is not going to end up being an Aggie on National Signing Day. It's going to come down between Oklahoma and Oregon. It's going to be a battle between the two that were in the Alamo Bowl last year. Now, David Hicks is set to take an official visit on December 16th. But it's important to note here that Oklahoma is going to get the last say when it comes to David Hicks' recruitment and an in-home visit. Now, we are 8 days away from early National Signing Day. And, as a lot of people are really trying to figure out what the roster is going to look like in terms of this 2023 class and who they're going to be able to close, Oregon's feeling pretty confident here. And, you Ducks should, because right now you have one of the best quarterbacks in this class in Dante Moore. Guys, I really do believe Dante Moore is one of the best quarterbacks because he just, as far as like the competition goes, he's huge in clutch situations. When I see the quarterbacks in this class, I feel like he's probably one of the most matured and polished, but also I believe that's a downside to him. Because I feel like with Dante Moore, you know what you're getting in a quarterback instead of like a Nico where, it's kind of still uncertain, but he's got all this upside and potential and talent. So those are some good traits, though. And he's got a lot of good physical traits and intangible traits. And for Oregon to be able to land a guy like this, another huge quarterback recruit, I think this is good for the program. I think this is good for Oregon. Now, the only question is will Dante Moore be on campus in Eugene for this visit this weekend with Phil Knight? Because he recently was out at UCLA, and there's really starting to become some buzz around Dante Moore potentially going out to Columbus this weekend for Ohio State. I will say this, and for all of you Duck fans or anybody else that is watching, I just want you guys to know that this Dante Moore thing is starting to become an NIL battle. Like that's really what I think this is. And ultimately, Oregon can play that game. Like if Oregon wants to play the NIL battle, they could play the NIL battle. So I don't think they have too much to worry about here. Now, if I'm an Oregon fan, I don't want Dante Moore ending up in Columbus just because. Listen, Ryan Day and those guys, they have been closers on the quarterback. And, Ryan Day and those guys, they're not completely sold, I don't think, on having the number one quarterback next year in Dylan Raiola. I think they're still convinced maybe Dylan Raiola could leave them and go somewhere else. As you saw with Ohio State, it was kind of a shocker that Dylan Raiola had committed that quickly because you had Nebraska in the mix, and now you have Kenny Dillingham at Arizona State, which is potentially going to be able to keep him in Arizona, which that's another something we got to talk about. Kenny Dillingham leaving the Ducks, I think that's probably going to be a major factor in us seeing Oregon potentially losing on the Dante Moore sweepstakes. Now, again, I think Dante Moore stays with the Oregon Ducks, but it's something that we definitely have to keep our eyes on, and it's something that if Ohio State is able to gain traction this weekend, Duck fans maybe should start to become a little worried that a flip is more possible. I don't think you guys have too much to worry about there about Chip Kelly. It seems weird that they're coming in late, but I know UCLA, if they really want to, they can also provide an NIL package. So again, I think this is becoming more of an NIL game than maybe it was in the past. So I'm looking at what Oregon could potentially do in this class. And really, realistically, I don't think you land. Okay, hold on. Let me rephrase this. There are 2 5-star defensive players that Oregon's in the running for: David Hicks and Mateo Uiagalelei. And one, I think you guys have a better shot than the other. And I think you guys have the best shot with Mateo. And here's why. Because depending on what Bo Nix decides to do, you guys need a quarterback for the next season. Because, yes, Dante Moore's coming in, but I think you would rather have Dante Moore sit behind somebody for at least a year and develop and learn the Power 5 football scheme and how to be able to do all that, kind of like what Oklahoma is expecting to do with Jackson Arnold. And you'll hear me reference Oklahoma a lot because, well, I'm an OU fan, if you can't tell with everything behind me and what I'm wearing. But ultimately, I think that's what you guys should do. And the reason why I think you guys would have a good shot at Mateo is because you guys could go out there and get DJ Uiagalelei as your quarterback, which he's a very serviceable quarterback. And you put some good talent around him, and I think he could really shine, especially at Oregon. And so I think you play the game for 1 year. You get DJ so you can get Mateo. And, ultimately, I don't think losing out on the Hicks sweepstakes hurts you that much. Additionally, you guys are still looking at potentially flipping the 5-star offensive tackle prospect, Caden Proctor. And listen, Caden Proctor is the best offensive tackle in this class because just one, the way that he's able to use his hands and how big they are, he's kind of got a prototypical size, and the way that he's able to make block space, I think he's just able to do it at an elite level. And Caden Proctor, number one in my books. Now, there has been a lot of things floating around about potentially Colorado and Deion Sanders being able to flip this commitment, as he currently still is crystal balled and committed to Iowa. This is something that we definitely have to watch. And we'll have to see kind of where Wiltfong and everybody feels about this here as we start to approach early signing day or national signing day. This is a prospect that you would expect Iowa is really potentially trying to narrow down and get signed here in 8 days. But listen, Colorado and Oregon, they're going to be coming full steam ahead for Caden Proctor, the best offensive tackle in this class. You guys have Jurion Dickey, so right, you guys have a really good wide receiver here. Another guy that you guys really should be keeping an eye on, and somebody that I think Oregon has a good shot to land, is the 4-star cornerback Roderick Pleasant. The 5'11", 180-pound cornerback out of Gardena, California. He's got offers from Miami and Penn State, but ultimately with the better success that Oregon had over Miami this season, I think Oregon's pretty much got this one on lock. And this is a guy that you want, right? He ran a 10.14 in the 100-meter dash, 20.40 in the 200-meter, right? He has tremendous speed. And he's definitely one of the fastest players here in this 23 class. And on the defensive side of the ball, this could be a guy that could literally line up with some of the best receivers. And I think a guy that you guys 100% need to be able to go out there and get. Oregon has landed some great talent already through the transfer portal, whether that's Trayshawn Holden or Justin Jacobs, but a couple more recruits that you guys have to watch for. Ashton Porter, the 4-star defensive lineman. Jacoby Lane, the 4-star wide receiver that is currently committed to USC. That's a flip watch that I would be watching for early signing day. And then also the 3-star athlete, Solomon Davis. All of those are options, and I think guys that Oregon is easily going to be able to go out there and land. And if Oregon lands all of those guys, including Mateo and Phillips, Caden Proctor, now I took David Hicks out of here, you're looking at a 290 composite score with 33 commits. That puts Oregon right now at the number 3 spot. Now, I don't think they end at number 3. I definitely think they could be in the top 5. But Oregon fans have a lot to be excited about with what Dan Lanning and this Oregon staff is doing on the recruiting trail. Now, the question is, again, what are you guys going to be able to do in the transfer portal? Because the recruiting rankings are nice, and it's really nice to be able to go out here and get guys. But there's a lot of talent in the transfer portal that you can get that can come in, try to play in your scheme, and potentially be an option for you, right? We talked about it. DJ Uiagalelei, the quarterback from Clemson, and his brother is Mateo, the 5-star edge rusher. I think this will be a great option and a great filler for that time of Dante Moore sitting on the bench. Another quarterback option that you guys could be looking at is Grayson McCall, the quarterback from Coastal Carolina. He had a great career there under Chad. I can't think of his name right now, but you guys know who I'm talking about. He had a great career down there, and this is a guy, another option I think Oregon could be trying to go out there and trying to get. On the defensive side of the ball, you got 2 cornerbacks that I think would be great options to go out there and fill, especially as you bring in freshmen, Denver Harris and Fentrell Cypress. Fentrell Cypress is probably one of the most talked about cornerbacks in the transfer portal right now out of Virginia. And it's something that if you're Oregon, you potentially have to look at both of those spots. Johnny Cornelius, the 4-star offensive guard from Rhode Island, did take a visit to Oregon, and it looks like all went well there. And that's going to be an interesting one to watch, right? Can Oregon go out there and close the deal and land one of the most coveted offensive linemen in this class? He had a blast there, and if you go look at the pictures, Cornelius looks like this could be a potential landing spot for him. He'll be a 2-year starter right away, right? And he will be a guy that can come in and help bolster down the offensive line. And if you get Caden Proctor and you get Cornelius, definitely that quarterback position is going to be a little bit more protected and look a lot better there. If you're Oregon, why not go raid Texas A&M? So, I mentioned Denver Harris up above, but you've also got Adeli, the 4-star defensive lineman, and then you've got LJ Johnson, the 4-star running back as well, out from A&M. There's going to be lots of options out there. I don't know if you guys necessarily need to go out there and get another wide receiver because you guys are getting Jurion Dickey and some other guys in your recruiting class. Dominic Lovett is an option, which, if Dominic Lovett wants to come play for you, you're going to take him. But I don't know if you guys necessarily need to go out there and attack for a wide receiver. I think, you guys mainly need to focus on the defensive line and that edge, because a guy right now that's currently committed in your class, I think you guys potentially lose on. I'm trying to think of his name. He's the guy from Colorado. I think it's Blake something. Blake Purchase. That's his name, Blake Purchase. I think you guys lose out on him to Colorado just because he has made it known that he is willing to give Colorado another look if Deion was there. Deion's there, so that's potentially something that you guys might lose out on. But Oregon's in a good spot right now. I've said it, and I'll repeat it again. You're in a good spot. You guys have a lot of good options. If you guys are able to land Mateo, but you guys don't land David Hicks, and that's fine, because you guys also landed the 4-star defensive lineman out of Converse, Texas, Johnny Bowens, who was originally committed to A&M, and I think is a great option. So as the transfer portal heats up, which, if you're an Oregon fan, that's something you could potentially watch for, because the transfer portal will heat up as bowl season continues to wrap up. So it's something that you guys need to watch out for. But ultimately, I think Oregon's going to be in a good spot. I think Oregon ends up with a number 5 class here. And the big question is can Oregon potentially keep Dante Moore at their quarterback of the future? So go ahead, jump down in the comments below. Let me know what you guys are thinking about this class for the University of Oregon. Do you think it's going to be a top 5 class? Do you think you guys retain and be able to keep Dante Moore committed? Would you guys want to potentially go out there and get DJ Uiagalelei as your starter for your quarterback position next season?